Okay, so our Spectrum Pulse for the evening, um, because, and this has been a big thing in throughout the community, which is why we call these things Spectrum Pulse, because it's essentially one of the communities talking about something. It's a pulse across the spectrum, whether it's spectrum, the actual thing, the forums, or the spectrum of communications, metaphorically speaking.
Oh, the spectrum of opinions.
Yeah. But there's been a lot of talk about the CitizenCon promises and what CR said and what he promised, and talking about the 12 months and stuff. And so there's been videos on it. Space Tomato did a really good video. There's been a lot of people tracking the features and stuff. And so I thought it was time for Nazeris and I to weigh in and provide some accurate context in order to set expectations a bit more appropriately, but also to have people be accurately informed about what was said and why we should be expecting certain things, why we shouldn't be expecting other things. Do you think we'll get more Jax McClear at this IE? God, I hope so. I love Jax. Jax is the best.
And so I don't know if it was your Discord or Paul's Discord. I think it was Paul's Discord. Somebody said, I hope we get a Jax McCleary's or Jax's farm or something to line up with where Clarkson, the inspiration for Jax's kind of character. Um, and somebody had a problem with the parallels of not so perfect people being the model for in-game people. One of the best things about using someone as a character reference is you can polish out the bad bits. And from my own viewing experience of Jeremy Clarkson and Jax McCleary, Jax is a much more humble and loving character.
Yeah.
Um,
He's not
he,
100% inspired by. He's inspired by aspects of that person. Not
yeah,
like he's not a copy. Just like we don't have to
just
copy. Silas Corner doesn't have to be a copy of. Um,
the
oh
owner
God.
of X.
Yeah, the owner of X, the owner of Tesla. Yeah.
You want his name?
Yeah. Elon.
Elon Musk.
He doesn't have
Okay.
to be a copy of Elon. He's loosely inspired by some, like he's his own character that shares some similarities. Like, it doesn't
Clarkson
have
is
to be
definitely
a.
not based. do,
Yeah, it's what's
do
the
you know
joke with
why
Star
they
Wars
ended
and
Top Gear?
Disney, legally distinct. You know,
Yeah, legally distinct. The reason they ended Top Gear is because Clarkson assaulted a producer.
yeah, that'll get you fired.
That was allegedly, I should say, so no one can come after me. Allegedly assaulted a producer. I don't know anything further than that. So like, yeah. But no, like they've shown in the Jax McClear videos, like he is a much more kind of in his own head, um, like a lot less going to scream at people in the world that he lives in. Even though he's a loud character, he loves his producers. He loves Jimmy.
Oh my God, Blizzrad.
It's loosely inspired Jared. I thought he was loosely inspired by Deadpool. Speaking of Jared, though, another tangent. This week he's getting scanned in as a character
Oh, there's no
into the
sound
game.
for it. Oh man, I
Just
thought I
have to
had the
cry
sound.
burrito time.
Why is it?
I can't believe you got those.
No.
Those notes.
Hold
Do
on.
do do do
I'm
do
pretty sure I had
do. I
sound in
want
this
them
one.
to I want them to have an entire team dedicated to upkeep and production of these videos. I want the reunion part 2. I want um a every now and then update on Garmin Humble. I forget her name. I'm sorry. The social media person. Like those just like a life or a day in the life inverse. Like they're so good and I love them so much.
Oh, I guess. Oh, this is the one I uploaded to turn into a GIF. Dang it. Where did?
Ah.
Oh wait, no. Hold on. Now I know where it is. Um,
Like, I want, and maybe that's what the cinematic team like works on in the interim between Squadron 1 and 2.
Why is it not? It's so quiet.
What about if we got mission
Oh, there we go.
chains with them? I feel like that would be like too much of a commitment. We still have like a bunch of
Stop the
a bunch of
crime.
backlog on mission chains and
Burrito
mission
time.
stories. Like we still don't have mission givers we
Shoulda
had in
stretched,
game
scumbag.
back up and running. We
Mission
don't
complete.
have like
Burrito.
their thing. We're supposed to be getting
I
location mission chains
Burrito.
as well as mission givers. I'm sorry, am I talking over it?
Sorry, I just had to play those. I have those in my
Okay.
stream when I do gameplay streams.
Nice. But yeah, I would love if there was a team made to make those videos.
I want them to do videos for the medic that they did. They did that post for. Remember seeing that it was the written medic, the written post about that medic character at IE last year. I want a video for that guy. That'd be cool.
I mean, yeah, and we still have Tessa. Like they've said, Tessa will return. However, if they return her as a junior cartographer, I will riot. Like they should definitely give her a promotion in the interim between being a junior
North End
cartographer
Trooper
and
put in the sound bites into the Twitch. I'll have to do that at some point.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
And they can
give me your
stand.
crayons to do quotes for Garmin Humble. All right,
Yep.
let's watch this clip.
Man.
So, regarding the 12 months, regarding the everything you see here, blah blah blah. There's two quotes.
Everything the light touches.
Yeah, there's two quotes. The first one was 33 minutes into the day one full broadcast. I remember this quote very distinctly because I was sitting over here somewhere. Northern Trooper was there. Yeah, crayons for the crayon god. But I remember this very distinctly. And this is what stuck in my mind. And so when everybody started talking about, everything after 12 months, I was like, wait, what? So let's listen to what Chris Roberts actually said, and then I'll read it back to you verbatim.
You want to hit captions as well, just so they're on.
And a lot of what you're going to see is going to be coming into Star Citizen over the next 12 months. Even a few little things will come into 322 at the end of this year. But definitely next year, a lot of what you'll be seeing will be coming in, and it's going to make a dramatically different experience in Star Citizen. So I'm very, very excited on that.
So I'm going to read.
Anyway, I can't wait to see what you guys think.
What came out afterwards.
Going to read what he said again. So that way there's no confusion.
So I heard SU's done next year.
A lot of what you're going to see is going to be coming into Star Citizen over the next 12 months. So he said over the next 12 months, even a few little things will come into 322. So he's separating 322 from the 12 months part. He's saying next 12 months and in 322, which was Q4 last year. So he was talking from the beginning. He was talking about all of 2024. But definitely next year, a lot of what you'll be seeing will be coming in, and it's going to make a dramatically different experience in Star Citizen. So I'm very excited on that. So from the beginning, Chris Roberts was setting the stage to say a lot of what we would be seeing at CitizenCon. Not everything, a lot. And he was saying that we were going to get a little bit at 322 in Q4 of last year, but next year, all of 2024. And then again, this is at the 4 hour and 27 minute and 34 second mark on the day 2 presentation towards the very end. Let's see what he says here. And this is where the confusion is. But remember what he said initially at the beginning of CitizenCon before he got all emotional, because back here somewhere, or whenever the squadron presentation is, like, he literally was crying. Like, I was almost crying. But
I was crying.
Yeah, it's very emotional time for him to be able to see his people, showing off their incredible work and everything they've been doing. A lot of it is everything they've been doing for the last few years, because he talked about how they've been doing that in the umbrella of Squadron without having to get it ready for a patch every 3 months, which is why they've
And the
been able to
amount
make all
of
this
flack
progress
they've
and get it
gotten.
done.
The amount of hate that they've gotten over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like good or not for the project, for publicity, it does wear on them. It does.
Yeah.
It does
He's
stick in their
commented
head.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he reads the posts. He doesn't reply very often, but he reads stuff and he sees things and he knows, So let's see what he says.
I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen in these last 2 days.
What the?
Introducing Chris Roberts.
Why did it do that at a different timestamp? That's weird. 4:27:34. How did 4:27? Well, that was okay.
I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen in these last 2 days. We were really excited to show you a lot of it. And I've sort of seen some online comments about, okay, well, that's very cool, but when are we going to get it in the game? But one of the real reasons why we wanted to show you this CitizenCon is because we've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features, as in they're either finished or they're in polishing stage, which is why we're showing them. So everything that we've been showing you here at CitizenCon is our...
We've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features. Not everything, but a lot of them, that they're finished or in polishing. So not everything that we saw at CitizenCon was finished or in the polishing phase. And Naz and I are going to talk about that, because there are things where if you watch the presentations and you're like, okay, this they showed off, it's in polishing. That's being used in game, in engine, it's working, versus this is a tech demo. And CIG has gotten a lot of flack for tech demo things in the years past, whether there was a lot of tech demo stuff going on, or using smoke and mirrors to show what they were going towards, but it wasn't anywhere near being in game. Whereas this was all, not all, but a lot of it was in engine, in game, in a polishing state. But we're going to talk about some of the things that were very much still, hey, this is what we're at. We are demoing the tech, but it's not ready for prime time yet. And we're going to talk about what those are in a few minutes.
Our intention, not making 100% promise, just so everyone remembers that.
It's our intention, not making any promises. So when everybody says, you guys promise this in the next 12 months, no, he literally says that.
Also,
we're
just
not
to
promising.
show how in tune he is with the community, he said he already saw posts about CitizenCon during CitizenCon. So this is at the end of day 2, so he's had a little bit of downtime. But he's already been on social medias and probably Spectrum, hearing people say, that's great, but when's it coming out? That's how much he is reading people's content. Instead of just like, okay, Squadron Day's over, go to bed, he, during CitizenCon, was looking at what the community was talking about.
Yep. Yeah, people locking onto keywords and hearing what they want to hear based off of their own bias and their own preconceived notions, not hearing what was actually said.
Everyone has bias. It's just a matter of, can you check it? Can you say, I know I have a bias? Like, I have a bias towards trusting people. And for that, I have, like, good people to be around, like Tree, like Paul, like Smithy. They're really good at saying, well, probably not. And probably this is much more of a realistic expectation. And that is a really good way of checking your expectation. Find someone who disagrees with you. And when you just go on Spectrum and say, oh, this sucks, and people go, yeah, it sucks, you get nowhere. You get absolutely nowhere.
Yeah. Find somebody who disagrees with you. Find somebody who read the same thing, listened to the same thing, hear what they heard, hear what they read, talk about the thing, and then reread it after having talked to those people. That's why Naz and I read the monthly reports. Is like, when we're reading it to you guys, or the roadmap or whatever, any of these things, it's usually the second or third time that each of us we have read it, and we've also talked about it after having read it. And happens all the time where Naz will be, I'll have read something, be like, oh my God, did you read this? And Naz will be like, well, that didn't say that. I'm like, go back and, oh, you're right. And
And we discuss that all the time in both Paul's and your Discord, like this word, and like 5 different people like I read it this way or I read it this way, and like you don't necessarily have to agree with the person who doesn't have the same opinion as you, as long as you understand that there is a different opinion. You can then move forward knowing that if you are wrong, you can adjust, and you can then have the other opinion to then be able to use both your failed opinion or correct one and the other failed or correct opinion to adjust your bias in the future.
Yep. Yeah, it is a learned skill. It's something that takes practice to achieve, but also maintain,
To get them into Star Citizen through next year. So it's not going to be gated on having to be after Squadron 42. So we are. So we're planning over the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year. Hopefully, everything that we've shown you, you will have in your hands playing inside Star Citizen. So,
let's see, was that the end of the quote? Yeah. So, reread what he said. I hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen these last 2 days. We were really excited to show you a lot of it, and I've sort of seen some online comments about, okay, well, that's very cool, but when are we going to get it in game? But one of the real reasons why we wanted to show you this, all this at CitizenCon, is because we've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features, as in they're either finished or they are in the polishing stage, which is why we're showing them. So everything that we've been showing you here at CitizenCon is our intention, not making 100% promise. So again, not making 100% promise, just so everyone remembers that, to get them into Star Citizen through next year. So we're not, it's not going to be gated on having to be after Squadron 42. So we're planning over the next, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year. Hopefully everything that we've shown you, you will have in your hands playing inside Star Citizen. So take that for what he said.
Only what he said.
Only what he said. All of 2024, including Q4 2023, 3.22. And then everything that is complete and in polishing. And that's the complete and polishing. And that's why he said a lot of in the beginning, because a lot of the things they showed us were complete and in polishing, but there were things that were not complete and were not in polishing that people were like, well, they showed us that, and it's like, well, that's not what they meant.
Like base building, like that wasn't even in production at all.
Base building and crafting aren't even in production. They didn't even show like concept art of crafting. They just showed base building, a base, and
they had some thumbnails.
Yeah, they had some thumbnails, but that wasn't. It wasn't like the video that they showed. It wasn't. Neither of those things were even in production. People are like, well, you said that would be, and it's like, no, he was talking about the things that were either complete or in polishing. The things that they have been working on in Squadron, and those are the things where they did gameplay demos. If they did a gameplay demo, those are the things where they should be showing it. And if it was a tech demo where it was demonstrated in a limited capacity, those are the things where it's like, probably not. So, those are those things where, like when I was watching him, I like, and Naz and I disagree on a couple of these things, which is fine. That's what we're talking about. But like, in particular, like global illumination ray tracing. I saw that demo. I was like, that looks cool. That doesn't look like it's anywhere close to being ready for prime time. And to me, that's one of those things where they are getting it ready for Squadron. And because they can't release Squadron without that. Well, what game is going to release without global illumination ray tracing at this point? But to then port that over into the MMO environment and with all of Star Citizen's environments and stuff, and all the other different ways that can work and get tested is a much bigger ask. And so to me, I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's a tech demo. They are demonstrating that they are building the tech, but it is not like demonstrating the star map.
Completedness.
You know, the star map was demonstrated in a PU environment. You know, the flight model, master modes, that was demonstrated. You know, like the MFDs. You know, that sort of stuff was very complete. It wasn't just a limited tech demo. And so that's why I was like, I don't expect that in next year. You know,
Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Messer Technologies.
Part of the crew. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
man.
Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
That's terrifying.
Oh, God. Thank you for the follow, Messer Technologies. Good to see you. Thanks for coming and hanging out this evening.
Is your name named after Star Citizen?
Which came first? Oh gosh. But there was a handful of things that were like that, and so I never expected those to come this year. I don't expect them to take that much longer, but I think that we're not going to see those sorts of things until 2025. So, with these two quotes in mind, we're going to look at two lists. And so the first, you may recognize this one if you watch Space Tomatoes video. Somebody in the community, this is a group of people, but they made a list of features and they made a list based off what they thought were the biggest features. And so they have 56 of the biggest features from CitizenCon, and 27 out of those 56 have been released so far. And so they don't have it broken down based off of what is planned for 4.0. This is just what's in game right now. And what's in game right now is essentially half of the biggest listed features based off of their list. But they have base building on here. They have ray trace GI, global illumination. They have, let's see, where's what was the other thing?
Data running?
Yeah, they had data running on here. They talked about data running. They said in the future we want to be able to do this. They didn't even show that.
They didn't even show it. It
You
was in the future we will be working on scanning. That's
yeah.
it was
in
during
the future,
the ship part. Like it wasn't even
Yeah.
during the like.
In the
that
future, you'll
part.
be able to take these pins and then share them with people and sell them and stuff. But it wasn't demonstrated or anything like that. That mechanic wasn't shown. So why that's on this list, I don't know. But it's a pretty good list. It is a pretty good list.
It is a good. There's nice words to say about it. Average view. Average viewer list.
Base building is on here. I think crafting was in here somewhere too. So I went through this list and I removed the things where I was like, what? And so it brought the list down
Crafting
to...
was in here at one point. I don't see it anymore.
I thought it was still in here. But I removed the data running. I removed the base building. I removed the ray trace GI. And I think I got it down to 51 or 52. And so, let's see. So it was... 27 divided by 51 is a little over half. And this is without 3.24.2. This is without 4.0. Is a little over half of everything that that's to be, expected. And he said a lot. So keep that in mind. And so, I did the math. I found all the things that are either targeted for 4.0 or 3.24.2, as well as a few of the things that are likely. And that was the other thing. Container attributes. They showed us concept art, and they talked about it. Like, this is the goal in the future, but they didn't say that, It wasn't like how they demonstrated personal hangars and cargo loading and unloading. It wasn't in engine with a container, blowing up or needing to be, sprayed down with cool or whatever,
And I think there's even a bit that from that quote that I didn't even pick up on, and that is a little bit farther back in the quote. Okay, so taking the entire paragraph. The reason we are showing you all this, and I'm going to paraphrase a couple things and hit the points in this paragraph. The reason we are showing you all this is because these features have hit an inflection point. A lot of the features, as in are in early, are either finished or in polishing. Skipping down, not
Oh, I know
being
what you're talking
gated
about.
by Squadron.
Mm-hmm.
He specifically, that entire paragraph of his comment is talking about the features from Squadron have hit an inflection point that they are ready to port them into Star Citizen. And those are the features that he specifically said, word for word here, that are coming in the next, technically, 13, 14, 15 months, because it's the next 3 months or 2-ish months after CitizenCon and the next
2024
year.
plus the what's little is left of, because really at CitizenCon there's a week of October left, and then November, and then 2.5 weeks of December. There's 2 months
Right.
left in the year to them.
Yeah. So in the year of some stuff that came in 320, whatever it was, through 2, and then the entire year of the entire year of 2024, what he was talking about coming in was specifically the stuff that was already done. So whether you think it was done or not doesn't really matter. That's just kind of a perception thing. But the stuff that he said is coming in, is planned to come in over the next year, is the stuff from Squadron. If it wasn't in Squadron, not coming in. Or not mentioned as coming in.
So
Which is
when
something I did not pick up on till just now.
when I went down through this list and found all the things that are planned for 4.0 and 3.24.2, and some of these things are like lumped in, but when I went down and broke all those down, what's basically coming out of this list that's announced for the rest of the year essentially comes out to, I think it was 37 out of 51. So let's do 37. I'm not going to go down one for one. Is over 70%. So 70%. So 70, a lot of what you'll see here. If we're at 70% of everything, that's good. That's a lot. That's more than a majority. That's more than a majority. That's more than a super majority, which would be 66%. Like that for CIG. Who everybody has given just so much crap over the years for being wildly inaccurate with their predictions. For Chris Roberts to say we're trying to get a lot of what you'll see here. If they're able to get 70% of what they showed off into our hands in that time frame that he laid off, they'll have hit their goals as they stated them. When has Chris Roberts ever been accurate? And the fact that people are losing their minds and being all doom and gloom about it, and it's like, well, wait a minute. If we get 4.0 before the end of the year, which, hello, we're not even at the end of September.
It's hilarious that people are so caught up in trying to be doom and gloom that in their own heads, they have invented a sentence that they've read somewhere that it says that 4.0 has been delayed until next year.
Yeah.
And I say it like that because it is as persistent as Flat Earth is right now, that somewhere someone said that 4.0 is delayed until next year. It is wild that like the community invented a delay to stay mad.
Yeah, to stay mad when all of this stuff has already made it in the in the first two patches of the first patch in patch 1.5 essentially of the year, and we've got a bunch more stuff that's coming in 3.2 4.2 that's been able to be migrated from 4.0 because they're like, hey, these things aren't being held up by server meshing, they're ready, so put them in. The game is dramatically different and dramatically improved, and people are upset because we made more progress this year than we've ever made before, but it wasn't everything that you said. It's like, oh my god, stop moving, put the goalpost down. You're gonna wear yourself out.
Stop it. Put it down.
So that's this list, and again, this link will be in the show notes. It's a good starting list and everything like that. They're doing a good job, but at the same time, let's be accurate. Let's have realistic expectations. But 70% is definitely, for me, like, how do you quantify a lot of? Does a lot of mean 90% to you and 70% to me? No, but like to me, that's more than a super majority. That's a lot of. When you're talking about a lot of, you're talking about a majority of what you're in. 70% is a majority. That's good. Now that is contingent on 4.0 making it this year, but even if 4.0 doesn't make it this year, they're going to continue to add features as they get done, and we're going to look at some of that here in a few minutes. But before we do, of course, Nazeris took it to an entirely different level. He took this, injected it with whatever space meth we have in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
And made his own shit.
Every single, not every single minute, but I watched every single presentation back at CitizenCon, and I not only noted the same features, but I also, if they mentioned a feature, I listed it down.
Dibley, I have high expectations. Don't let me down.
So before the stream, I also did a copy of it because we did remove. So there at the bottom, you'll see we're on copy of sheet 1, and that is removing the features that were obviously not shown for coming in the next year. Now, because
Danger
I just
hobo,
realized
C's get degrees. Okay, so.
Because now I also know that most of the stuff, like if it was built for Squadron, is what he meant. We can cut this down way farther. We'll not be doing that on stream. It's already 12:20. Eventually, after sleep, I do have stuff to do in the morning and work tomorrow. Finally,
but we did go through this while we were talking, and we pulled a few things out from the list, in order to make the list based off of, okay, these are the things that were shown. This is what you can base a lot off of, and Naz is like a fine-tooth comb. It's impressive. And this, again, will be linked in the show notes as well if you want to take a look at it. Because some of these things, I was like, I don't remember that at all.
You'll keep forgetting apparently raids were in there.
Mm-hmm.
They were in there, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and that was a thing. They demonstrated what they want a raid to look like. And they talked about, hey, we want to have raids in the future. But
yeah,
it was
like, hey, and they specifically said, this is an early gameplay. And remember, Chris said everything he was talking about was coming in the next 12 months, next year, 2014 or 2024, is stuff that had hit the inflection point of being in polish or done.
Mm-hmm.
And they specifically said raids were not even concept complete. It was an early gameplay demo validating a concept.
Yeah, we could go back and find the quotes and find the things, but we're just laying it out for you. Like,
we're 2 weeks away from CitizenCon. It's relevant at this point.
Yeah,
it's time to reset the clock and do it again.
But yeah, so Naz's list is really comprehensive, and he's got everything's broken down into color. Like, green is in game now, yellow, some of it's been added in, like the scope shaders. Some of the gun audio, like the like not everything for the the star maps in, but not everything's in. What's another good example?
Weaponware malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
We have weaponware. I don't know if the malfunction is actually in there. Does it jam? Do you have the animation that plays when it gets jammed?
But then red.
But a lot of this stuff, like on the other list had very like large categories. a lot of this stuff like ladder sliding, player animation, interactable usables, um, a lot of stuff is going to be delivered all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this stuff, especially that is red, but even is red but doesn't have a 4.0 marker, is just in 4.0, and it's not a big enough feature for them to talk about it not at CitizenCon. Not all of these things got their own panel at CitizenCon. They were kind of like lumped in with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like under resource network, there was also engineering. I just split up the two because one's the gameplay, one's the feature. They talked about tuner mechanic, lead engineer, spreading misfires, signature bursts, wear and tear, repair and replace, turn it on and off. All things they mentioned while talking about engineering. A lot of that stuff can be broken off into nuances for their own features, but it was all referenced by the same thing. So some of the stuff just didn't get its own bits. Some of the stuff got its own bits that we don't know where it is because when they mention something bigger, they also mean that. Kind of like the character experience, I think it was, listed on the old roadmap, V23, whatever we're up to now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, and like vehicles being brought in from freight elevators, we know that didn't make it into 3.24. They're still working on that. Chad talked about that recently. Maybe it'll make it in before the end of the year. Maybe it won't. We don't know.
Yep.
There's a lot of change. If you're in my Discord or in other Discords and you see the leaks, there's a lot of things that are being sneakily brought into 3.2, 4.2 that are in the patch notes or that are in the leaked files that show that they're working on things, that they're making progress. So we shall see. Because like Naz is going to continue to update this, as we go, and to see where we actually end up at the end of the year, as a retrospective. But we wanted to cover this before we got to CitizenCon because it's timely. But like there's a few things where like we talked about global illumination and ray tracing, but to me that was very much a tech demo. The Maelstrom, that was a tech demo.
Maelstrom is the one where we absolutely disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go first and explain.
And it's because they showed it in a very limited capacity. They showed it in Squadron in a very specific level, and then they showed it with the Gladius and a one little piece of a location. And when they're describing it and talking about how it's they basically say that the network it works well over a networked environment, that shouldn't have any issues due to lag or whatever, but also that it was artist friendly. And so that means that as artists it isn't a giant ask for CIG's art teams to convert things back into the way Maelstrom works, but that still means that they have to do that work as well as on things going forward, and it's not a small ask. And so that's why I didn't think that they would just be able to, okay, well the feature is finished and now we can turn it on, because there's an art a pretty massive art debt that is going to take a while. Now, granted, a lot of this stuff is systemic because that's how CIG does things. It's why when they add in Pyro, the size of the game on your hard drive isn't going to double, because they reuse the same assets. They just either reskin them differently, and use the serialized variables, or they are able to put other assets on top of them and layer things in order to make it look different and look completely different, but it's just using things that are in the same library. And so they have to go back through the libraries to adjust all these different entities in order to give them these properties. But once they do, this wall of this type, well, it affects all the walls that are of that type, even though they look, differently. They're skinned up differently, or this door, or this thruster and such. But it's still a lot of work. And so to me, that's why I was like, this is a tech demo. It's a cool tech demo, and I'm glad this is where they're going with it. But we got a long ways before this is a full feature in the PU.
And then I looked at a lot of the same points, like what they showed, where they showed it, and I drew the exact opposite conclusion. Like they showed it both in Squadron and in Star Citizen, in
Yeah.
Pyro, on an outpost that was in a live environment, not live environment, but it wasn't a cordoned off section. It was on a planet at an outpost that was procedurally generated. Um, and they haven't said anything about reworking Squadron to include Maelstrom and all the assets. They haven't talked about, like they talked about in the resource network, that they had to go and apply it to all their ships. They didn't say anything of that with the monthly reports that we've had since then about Maelstrom having to, like, this giant ask for the game. And so I think that Maelstrom was or is one of those things that we should be looking for to get in the next 12 months. So, and this is one of the things that we both read the same thing, saw the same stuff, and we came to a different conclusion on. This is interesting, and we'll have to see where we get to.
It's encouraging too because was it in the June or July report? It was within the last few months. They said that Maelstrom is in the main dev branch and everybody has access to it now, and so the entire company can start using it. And so now we're at that point where when
did they say that about server meshing? Because they said that about server meshing like 6 months after CitizenCon or something.
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
But you do remember them actually saying it?
I remember the Maelstrom one, but that was the thing for me is, especially after reading that, I was like, oh yeah, they're still working on the tech for it at this point. It hadn't even been enabled across the dev stream yet. But you're right that they did show it off in a Squadron environment, and I think that's where it was one of those things where they showed it off in Squadron, just like and it's gonna need to be in Squadron, just like global illumination and ray tracing is gonna need to be in Squadron, but its implementation in Squadron is going to be dramatically less than Star Citizen.
Yeah, but going back to the closing comments, like the features in Squadron have hit an inflection point. So like, I can see it both ways. Honestly, I can see it both ways, and I will not be disappointed either way. Knowing the tech exists is enough for me.
Oh yeah, knowing the tech exists and knowing that it's in the main dev branch now. Like, if it comes in 2024, hooray! I don't see it happening, but knowing that it's in the main dev branch means that they're making really good progress on it, and we're gonna probably see an update on it at CitizenCon and see a lot of that work coming in over the next year, because it's in the main dev branch. Like, that's what that means. It means everybody it has access to it, and everyone's going to be using it because this is the path forward for CIG for their damage model. So I'm not going to go through everything in the patch notes, but these patch notes are available. They pop up in the news channel in my Discord and multiple other channels and stuff. For the Evocati patch notes are not hidden anymore. They're public information. And so there's a lot of these things are things that were 4.0 and now are getting moved up. But there's a lot of quality of life upgrades and everything. But then there's also an unofficial list that's going around of things that have been found in Evo.
Why didn't you put that in the document?
Oh, because I just got it like this afternoon. So
doing it live.
Yeah.
Can I has?
Yeah, I absolutely. Let's see. Oh, I have to ask to share.
Oh. You can't just copy what's in your URL.
Well, he I don't know, maybe. We'll see. Test it with Naz. You're the guinea pig. But this is another list, and it's an ongoing list that's being made by a member of the community that they're updating and stuff. So there are things in here that I are in 3.2, 4.2 that we thought were going to be in 4.0, or things that weren't even noted. Smaller items that might have been on Nazeris' list. So things to cross check against. So I picked the big items to me that were the way they were demonstrated. I was like, okay, these are the things I expected to see this year based off of how they were shown and how much was shown of them. And especially in the context of what Chris Roberts said. And it's going to make a dramatically different experience than Star Citizen. So a lot of the things that we've gotten in the game have really changed the experience. The star map, the new UIs that have come in and AR markers. The MFDs are going to be huge. The personal interaction experience and system has been really great. The looting UI, so many different things have come into the game that have made the experience feel so much better, and it's so much more functional and reliable and less buggy. But it also, visually, it looks like it's on par with where Star Citizen should be in 2024. In contrast with other games. So that's why I picked these 3 items, because they're big ticket items that really would go a long way to changing the experience in Star Citizen and bring it up to par with the other things that we've gotten. And the first is the quantum travel experience. So I found a couple. What's that?
Focus mode is apparently in 324.2.
Focus mode.
It is a UI, technically player interaction edition. And I can actually make that on the list now. It is something they talked about. So it's basically a addition to the player interaction system. When you go up to a screen, currently, previous to 324, I don't know if they changed it specifically, but I've noticed it used to just kind of grab your face and attach it to the terminal.
Mm-hmm.
In 324, it kind of just doesn't just do anything. And it just kind of like activates the screen and lets you kind of like be wherever. And it's a lot less magnety. Like if you pull away, it will just kind of close and let you back off. Focus mode actually moves your character up to the terminal and focuses in.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
And it's a lot smoother when you try to pull away. It's not like holding backwards for like a second and a half before your character like rips its face away from the console. It just kind of slowly fades out. Yeah.
Yeah, you pop off like a suction cup.
Slowly fades out. Yeah. So focus mode is in 324.2 according to that unofficial list. I'm so happy. That was like one of the biggest things. Because like when I was building the spreadsheet,
a big quality of life
update. I specifically went in game to test that one. I'm like, dang it, it's not in yet. In 323.2. Or 324.2.
So related to the quantum travel experience, we got to see them flying the Gladius after they left that. They got in it was during the flight demo, and Yogi and was talking all about it. And so they got into combat, and then they quantumed over to a planet, and they demonstrated the new quantum travel experience, and then quantum boosting. And to me, it's like, okay, they're doing that in the game, going from one location to another, in the pyro system, seamlessly, engaging in combat and all that. Like, that's a very complete demonstration to me. And I was like, okay, that looks like it's going to be coming in, in the next year. Like, it's a systemic system. And I feel like, okay, if they've got it working for the Gladius, it shouldn't be a huge difference. Quantum travel from ship to ship shouldn't be that different of an experience, and quantum boosting, shouldn't be that different of an experience. And to me, it's like, like Naz said, it's the squadron things that are at an inflection point. I took that literally, and so this is the part of the show where it's like, CIG, you showed this off. You showed it off in pretty good context. Where is it? And so that's why we're showing this, is because, this is the critique side where it's like, okay, CIG is not where they want to be with this feature. for Squadron, yes, but not for the PU. And it's probably one of those things where this can wait because it works in game, and we'll get it in when we get a chance. But we've had all these moving parts, and they're not quite where they want to be in terms of firing on all cylinders with all these people moved back over from Squadron. They're still catching up, and they have a lot of they have more work to integrate these things than they probably thought. So in a reply to there's a post on September 4th that Yogi replied to on the 6th. The quote, Alvator said, Quantum Boost, is that still a thing? Because it was showed off to lots of fanfare. We were told it was an important part of Master Modes, but it's been a minute now, and there's clearly been nothing new to say about it. So, question mark. And Yogi says, Quantum Boost is part of the Quantum Travel Experience feature. It's not part of the Master Modes change. Yeah, so don't get salty about it, because they're two different things. They're literally two different deliverables on the progress tracker.
Master Modes is only the function of switching between SCM and nav mode. Everything to do with the characteristics of nav mode and SCM are a different feature.
Yogi goes
so
on.
Tired of people saying, I don't like the handling, Master Mode sucks. It's not Master Modes. It's the flight control tuning that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've had Master Modes in the game in some form since freaking 3.0.
We just showed it at last CitizenCon to give you an idea of what the flow looks like. Well, you guys did a really good job of that. So good that everybody
really
expected
it.
Yeah. It is fully enabled in Squadron 42, which makes sense because that's, they demonstrated it. The fact that they were able to demonstrate it in a PU a Pyro environment while it's only enabled in Squadron is pretty impressive, but it's not ready for the PU yet. So, but they are doing work on it. Oddly enough, I can't find mentions of it when I search for Quantum in the monthly reports, but it might be buried under something else. But the Quantum Travel Experience has had a lot of work over the years, obviously, by different teams that are now folded back into the core gameplay pillar. After their recent reorganization, the core gameplay pillar picked that work back up at the end of April, but it's scheduled all the way out through into 2025, which means that work is definitely going to continue into 2025. It doesn't stop here. So this is a thing. The Quantum Travel Experience is not going to come in 2024. I do not see it coming in 2024, even though they say a feature can release here, and this is them following up on it because it goes out this far. I think it's going to need a lot more work, but I do expect this for 2025. I think we're going to get a culmination of all these things that change the experience of Star Citizen in 2025, especially in the first half with a couple of things. So that's quantum travel. The next one is control services, because this is a big deal for me because I don't do a lot of flying in space. Flying in space for me is just going from one place to another to get and fly around the planet or the moon. I like flying in atmosphere with my ships and going down to planets and moons and doing stuff. I don't do space-based bounties. I'll probably do more salvaging and space-based mining in the future, but that's not my shtick right now. So, Yogi replied to another post. Can we get an update on master modes in atmospheric flight? And so I'm not going to read all this, but this post was on July 22nd, so it's over 2 months old. So Yogi says what you call master modes in atmospheric flight is actually just the control surface tech. It doesn't, like Naz said, it has nothing to do with master modes. There's flight tuning involved, but there is technology that has to go along with this, and that's the control surfaces. The control surface tech we showed during CitizenCon. If you watch our demonstration on flight, you'll get a rough idea of what we're aiming for. It was a good demo. It was a tech demo showing what they're aiming for. The plans haven't changed. However, I don't have any news on it yet. There has been some work going on, but it is definitely not ready for the PU yet. So that's another one of those things where the way they demoed it looked good. And it looked like it was farther along than it is, but it was this is a tech, this is control surface tech that was being demonstrated. And it was demonstrated with the Gladius because it's where they need it for the Gladius and probably a few other craft that you fly in Squadron, that they're able to demonstrate it in the a PU environment with ships that it's built for in Squadron. But that tech has a long way to go before it's ready for all the other ships that are in the PU. Gravity wells. Let's be real. Flying for you is more accurately described as plummeting. Falling with style. Get it right. And then Yogi says we're not moving away from the control surfaces. The 324 Atmo tuning is still using the legacy system. If you find it too forgiving, then maybe put that in the feedback section. So
I feel like that was a dig.
Yeah. But that's one of those things where this is a gotcha. And I'm kind of bitter about it because, I got. Like, this was a tech demo that I got fooled on. Like, I thought that this was a full-on demonstration and this was, going to be getting ported over, and, here Yogi is saying is like, no, we did a tech demo of what we're aiming for, but it's got a ways to go. It's ready for Squadron again, but not ready for the PU. But so shield your eyes because bright white. The August 16th and August 23rd weekly newsletters showed what looked like flaps on what is assumed to be the Freelancer control surfaces. And Yogi said there has been some work going on, but it is definitely not ready for the PU yet. So they're working on it. It's just not ready for the PU. We don't know when. And part of the problem with that when is this deliverable hasn't been added to the core gameplay team like the other deliverables from the vehicle feature team have. But you can see this work on aerodynamic control surfaces. Here it is, vehicle feature team, one of the teams that was assigned to Squadron, working on it right up into the middle of Q2, only a few months before CitizenCon up here. So there's more work going on for it, but we aren't able to track that just yet via the progress tracker or otherwise. It's aileron. You're close enough. You're good enough for not government work. I don't know. Naz, what'd you think about the control surface demo? Did you think the same thing I did? Or were you like, no, dummy?
I did think both the quantum travel system and like the new quantum travel system and the atmospheric controls were a lot closer than they apparently are. So yeah, I'm also bummed that they are really not. But apparently, like according to keeping up with Yogi's posts, there is a lot of stuff that he doesn't have time for, like his team doesn't have time for. I don't know why that is, but there's a lot. He has stated at least once, other than the post you showed, about not being able to get as much work done as he would have liked to on the vehicles since CitizenCon.
Yep.
So something else, whether it be size of team or needs of the game, which is probably more likely, distracting the vehicle team from master modes, tweaking that. But like also he wanted master modes to go faster. He wanted not speeds, but like the development of it. And he wanted to be able to iterate on it faster. And also, like, they've been developing the 4.0 branch. The 4.0 branch was, supposed to be out by now. So, yeah. We'll have to see where exactly those two things come along. I definitely think that. Well, I was gonna say I definitely think by the time Squadron releases that we'll have both those things in game, but I don't know because the development of those features into Star Citizen has no relation to the development of Squadron 42. Because once those features are done for Squadron 42, it is up to resources, a big ethereal word, to free up to be able to have the manpower to then integrate it into Star Citizen, which is its own timetable. And in the interim of it being done for Squadron, aka now, and it being developed for Star Citizen, we could see Squadron release, which is a wild concept.
I think it's they aren't able to work on as many things in parallel as they want, and so they're focusing on master modes and resource management and engineering, and then they're going to circle back around, or they aren't pushing as hard on these other things because these are the things that will come next. 4.1, 4.2. They come next year.
Not going to go on the big rant that I did on my stream. Making the team bigger will not help.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
There's only so many people that you can hire to build a house. Eventually, even if you have one person for each piece of wood in the frame, the roofers can't start their job until the framing's done. They can't put up the walls yet until the frame is done. You can't have more people than you can, one, manage. Two, you can only have up to as many people as can work in parallel on the same task.
Yeah. Well, and like these things they're not like prerequisite or even codependent, but by releasing them all at the same time would really make balancing and making these things work. And like, imagine if the quantum travel experience and control services came out across 3.2.3 and 4.0.
I forgot about that analogy. Thank
how
you,
much that would fuck everything up, on top of we also have engineering and master modes. Like that's too much change for the game at one time, and for the devs to be able to manage the balancing and the bug fixing and all that. Can you? Oh my god, it would be an absolute nightmare.
And if you go back and watch, it was a year or two ago now. I think it was last year actually. The graphics programmer that talked about Vulcan, like he specifically is a small team lead because he wants a small team, because having his team that small, one, means that his job work is not a headache, but also he gets to do the fun part of his job, and that's coding. So he gets to be part of the team as well as managing the team. I imagine a lot of devs, like, wow, I don't even need to say that, but like all the team leads in CIG only take what they need to work on or what they want. Their teams are not, well, now I know you just became a manager yesterday. Here's 50 people you have to now manage. That ain't it. Like, that's not what happens. If they don't want big teams, or they don't need big teams, or they can't manage big teams, or they're not don't have enough skill to manage big teams, they don't manage big teams. They keep it small and they just work through the stuff. Chad McKinney's team is Chad McKinney's team is a small team that interfaces with a lot of the other teams.
Yep.
So even though his team is small, they have their workforce and they do what they do. And just throwing more devs at them won't make it any better. The vehicle team is one of the, or not vehicle team, but the vehicle art teams are one of the few teams where just throwing more people at them would actually get stuff done faster. Tech and features is not one of those things.
Yeah. Tech and features, the way things work under the hood. In terms of making art assets, and that's like, art assets is where a lot of the making the universe bigger will go faster, by hiring a lot of artists who can make a lot of art assets to make locations, make interactables,
Yeah, I imagine CIG will become one of those companies, um, any minute now that hires a ton of kids out of university and out of college. Like, you have zero actual world experience. Go do this art for X amount of months, and then you can find a job in the industry and go. Or you can
yeah,
stay.
make
I
props.
imagine they will churn through. Yeah, I imagine they will churn through artists, because art at the end of the day is a relatively wide pool of people. Just go on ArtStation. Like, look at
Mhm.
how many people work on Star Wars, Star Citizen, and Star Atlas all at the same time. Um, Not as in-house devs, but like concept artists and vehicle designers and all that. Um, so they have plenty of room to just balloon their art devs to just
Mhm.
earn art out. How they make that art actually function, not so much.
Yeah. Hey, the prisoner, how's it going? So the last thing, and this one is something to be optimistic about, and something I'm really excited about, and I'll give. This ties back into something we were talking about earlier. Is radar and scanning, and you'll see right here we have FPS radar and scanning pulled up. Well, so they demoed that a whole lot. In the UI demo when they were doing all the star map stuff. They demoed the radar, FPS radar and scanning. But they also, during the flight part, they did a ping and they showed the flight radar and flights. If you look down, you saw the new flight radar on the HUD, and then you also had saw the they did scanning as well, showing things. And so that's right here on the progress tracker. And so there's been a lot of work on both of those features, and these are the sprints for the core gameplay team. There are other sprints from legacy teams, vehicle radar and scanning. There's also a legacy deliverable as well. But look at where both of these sprints end right now. So, initially, these were probably features that were not targeting a 4.0 release because they were targeting 4.0 in here. And now 4.0 is targeting probably here ish, towards the end of Q4. I think that there is potentially a good chance. Now, obviously, don't use project tracker, the progress tracker to try and predict when something will be released. Aha! But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So these two features, what most people don't realize is this is one system. One system to rule them all, one system to in the dark despite them. The scanning and radar system for FPS and vehicles is the same tech, but they have to make it work on, emanating from, both the scan, the radar, the ping part. It has to be able to come from a character as well as come from a vehicle, but you also have to have signatures that come from characters that can be detected as well as coming from vehicles, and they both have to cross-mogenate. You have to be able to detect vehicles by pinging and using your FPS radar, and the signatures that the vehicles put out, which is anything with a resource network. But which also means you'll be able to ping for things that are resource network related in locations, buildings and stuff. But then you also be able to when you're using your radar and scanning on a vehicle, whether that's a ground vehicle, because some of those will have radars and stuff, but also ships, you also have to be able to detect the emissions and things that come off of characters. And I say characters, I don't mean like players, characters, because characters not only means your player character, but anything that uses a character model like the Atlas. The Atlas is not a vehicle. Yeah. Copians, yeah. Animals, creatures. You'll be able to detect those. They've talked about that in the monthly reports. So, very good point. So, when I say, but wait, there's more, this is the May monthly report, and this is the core gameplay section. And so the other thing I forgot to mention is there has been extensive mentions regarding radar and scanning, and they just say radar and scanning, but then they talk about some things that are related more to vehicles versus characters and such. In every monthly report since February, they have been busy. Huge sections of the core gameplay pillar have been all about radar and scanning. They're pushing hard on this. So, and when you talk about staggered development, when they have this many people working on something, it means that this is the feature that they are working on. This is what they are targeting for 6 months out. And they got started in February. So probably targeting the end of the year. So in May, they said finally for radar and scanning, the team activated FPS radar and other experimental radar features across Arena Commander. These systems will be reassessed closer to the release of Alpha 4.0 for a potential preview via Arena Commander. Well, when they preview something in Arena Commander, when does it come out? The patch after it was previewed. Master Modes was previewed in 3.2.2, right? And released in 3.2.3. Engineering was previewed in 3.2.3. Is now coming out in 4.0 because 3.2.4 is just the same branch.
Not supposed to exist.
Yeah. And so they're looking to preview radar and scanning in Arena Commander in 4.0 in May, which means that they were probably targeting a 4.1 release, because in May they were still targeting Q3 for 4.0, which means they're targeting Q4 for 4.1, which means they're targeting radar and scanning for 4.1 to be released in 2024, to add to our list of things, to change the Star Citizen experience. This is a huge one. I mean, when we all saw that in the Star Map demo and everything, and doing all that, a lot of people are like, oh, wall hacks, but a lot of us were like, exploring caves,
Trying
doing
to find what boxes
anything.
in the environment's actually interactable.
Yeah, all sorts of things.
Because this is the same feature from 2 years ago, CitizenCon, where they were in the Asiato station and they pinged the environment and it showed everything that was interactable. That's the system.
Finding your, if you're doing, you're infiltrating, you're like sneaking around, right now we get all these AR markers that hint us, the follow the yellow brick road essentially. Well, if those won't always be there. You'll have to ping to find where to go to look for the things that you're looking for in order to complete, whatever job for it. And like this so the reason I'm super excited about this is I like caves, and I've wanted to do caves for so long, but caves were so broken with traversal issues for so long. Well, we got new traversal in, and the mantling and stuff, and better crawling and all that, so that works far better. And then we got the new caves that are better designed, so you don't get stuck. The sandy caves. Now we're getting acid caves and the revamped rock caves, and now we in 3.4.2 we have the maps for the caves, and hopefully looking like maybe by the end of the year, or maybe if not the end of the year, very early in 2025, we're going to be able to scan and use our radar in those caves, so that way it isn't just here's an AR marker. Yeah, go search here or something like that. No, you scan and okay, well, it pulls up the hand minables, or loot crates or anything with a signature or something like that. Massively changes the game for when you're doing FPS stuff, but also ships. We have the legacy, ping feature and legacy scanning and all that.
We already have acid biomes on planets. Hurston has the acid biome.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ariel is also acid.
Yeah, one of its moons. Yeah.
Also, Aether just said all the wall hack people just showed how much their imagination has been stunted by too much COD. That is, I think, a really big problem with, I think, just in general, mostly the PvP scene in Star Citizen. but I imagine it would also affect other places because we've been in alpha so long, because the status quo has been the status quo for so long. I think people, and especially the PvP crowd, has gotten a wrong expectation of what CIG is building, to where they're actually starting to achieve their goal, and people are freaking out. And it is more arcadey than they thought it was going to supposed to be. Yes, I said that correctly.
It has arcade features, but there's so much nuance to it that it makes it so sim because there's so much depth and there's so many ways that it's like, oh, wall hacks. It's like, no, you're going to be able to counter that. And you'll have to have the right. You have to have the tool. You're not going to get given that. Just like the
Dynamic
the
crosshair?
projected, the dynamic crosshair. If you're not wearing the right helmet, you're not going to have it. Like, all these things are going to be based off of your choices, and they're going to have consequences to that. So the last note is this is the August monthly report, and take that in context of what we just read about in May. So this is 3 months later, and they're talking about how they're going to they want to preview it in Arena Commander during 4.0, and they'll reassess as they get closer to 4.0's release. Well, in August, July's work on radar and scanning continued throughout August, with the team reviewing it in Arena Commander to assess the impact on the player experience and tune values to achieve the desired effect. They're getting it ready for a technical preview. So this is my prediction. In 3.24.2, we're going to have tech preview of radar and scanning. Now, whether it's FPS or vehicle or both, I don't know. I definitely think FPS. I'm hoping both. But if you go back and read through the monthly reports, they talk about the two like simultaneously, and we can see how the work lines up. But I think that because this was originally something that they were planning on testing during the 4.0 cycle in Arena Commander, well, now the 4.0 cycle is, essentially going to be 3.24.2, and then 4.0 is going to be later. I think that this could be a 4.0 feature at the end of the year. They moved up MFDs and HUD, and they're adding radar and scanning from what would have been 4.1 to now 4.0 at the end of the year. That's just my thought. I'm really hopeful for it because I'm already looking forward to having a map of the dang caves, but being able to go into a cave and scan when I'm searching for a dead body or I'm going mining and looting. Because the other thing is that the new caves have loot in them.
Very nice.
Yeah, not only are there minables, and there's missions and stuff, and they have the maps, but they have loot in them. So the loot goblin is really excited for all this to come together and to be able to take these missions and go exploring.
Are you going to need to buy a bigger ship just for the loot?
I just buy more crates. I fill up a crate and I put it into storage, and then I go get another one and start all over again.
So you're very much location based, not ship based.
Yeah, not keeping it all on my ship.
A lot of other Zero to Hero kind of playthroughs are ship based. Like I forget who did the living off the Corsair series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and like eventually I'll keep more, but right now I've got a cutter, and so I'll work my way up to a larger ship, and eventually then keep more. Yeah, but for right now it's just going to be keeping more and more loot, and because some of it is I loot and then I take it back to my personal hangar, and then I store the things I want to keep, which isn't very much, bits and pieces of armor and weapons and stuff, but not a lot. But then a lot of stuff I sell. I'm selling armor. I sold armor and weapons. I sold a ton of mineable, hand minables. I made like 20 something thousand UEC the other night just by doing hand minables on a couple of missions. So, work my way up from there. But eventually, like, I'll keep more on the ship based off of, I want this gear with me versus leaving it at the hangar. But this is like, if quantum travel and control services are probably going to be coming in 2025 because they're following on the heels of resource management, engineering, and master modes. And FPS and vehicle radar radar and scanning are Q4 this year, Q1 next year. We'll have completed that goal of changing the Star Citizen experience, in the not too distant future. We've gotten a whole lot of it already. We're going to get a lot more of it through the rest of this year and even more into next year. And I'm super happy about that. Like, we've had so much legacy stuff for so long, and it feels so much better already, and the rest is like literally within our reach. Oh, Blizzrad, I'm gonna go spelunking in your holes in the ground.
I know you meant
What?
to phrase it that way, but that's terrible. Terrible.
Blizzrad goes out of his way to make me uncomfortable and fails miserably because he forgets who I am.
Yeah, okay.
That's where the 0311 part comes from. Remember, I am an old infantry marine. I am a dirty, terrible person at heart. I've just become more civilized, but at my core,
More
I'm
civilized,
still
but not so.
yeah. At my core, I'm still a murder hobo who wears green. Like, that's it. Like, I'm strangely aroused. But yeah, that's it for FPS vehicle radar and scanning. I think that's all we have for that Spectrum Pulse. Nazeris, do you have any closing comments on that?
Nope.